Okay, next question is, why is it important to be self-supporting as a group?
Well, we spend an awful lot of time, broadly speaking, we tend to have used and abused an awful lot of people on our way to recovery. And in the program, if we're going to get well, if we're going to really get recovered, I think we have to learn how to be self-supporting and how we stand on our feet and take our responsibility and not depend on other people to do stuff. So I think that's a part of the healing place, the healing stuff, and the recovery is to get away from that stuff of letting other people take care of us. And so that whole principle of self-support, to me, is critically important. And like I always like to, if I'm working with somebody new, a lot of times folks come in, hey, they don't have anything. They've used up everything before they got here. And people say, I don't have anything to give. What I usually try to get them to do is help us arrange the room. Because there's ways to contribute other than money. But the worst thing you have is somebody sitting there feeling like a fifth wheel. And so I want them to feel like they're a part of it. I don't care what they do. If they go wash the dishes. And I know one night I walked in the group I was in, and there was and the coffee pot was there, and it was dirty. And so I was washing it, and a young woman came in. She said, "Why are you washing that pot?" I said, "My God, girl, you won't believe it, but that thing was dirty." And I said, "So I'm just kind of washing it up." And she said, "That's my job." I said, "Well, you're going to have to be faster if you're going to do that job." But
I think you bring up a good point there. That's kind of on a side note with the self-supporting. I don't think I can come into a meeting and just throw money in the basket and then leave.
Yeah.
I think part of the self-supporting is I have to, if I'm coming to a group, I need to help set up and break down too,
Sure.
before and after the meeting, because I can't just throw money in the pot
Yeah.
and leave and just think that I'm going to get out of that meeting all that I can get out of it. I think a lot of it comes when I sacrifice not just my money but my time as well.
You bet. Well, I think it's important for us to convey that to people, that it's not just money, that, taking time to just go over and spot somebody that's standing in a corner by themselves, pull them out. And so there's a lot of ways to contribute. That's what I always try to get across to people, that money is just one little piece of it.
And sometimes writing the checks, the easy part is actually contributing my time. Is the other challenge, and the important part of being self-supporting. And I think one of the things I appreciate about being self-supporting in the program is, I think that maybe helps contribute to us being autonomous in a lot of ways, because whoever pays the piper tends to want to call the tunes, and it's something we typically don't find in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the other question tagging on to that is, why can't an AA group own property if the group can afford it, and it wouldn't make them more? Wouldn't it make them more self-sufficient?
Well, it's the cautions in the program about money, property, and prestige that we have to watch against, and it's so easy to let stuff take over our thinking. And if you have a building, you've got a huge responsibility, and whether you want it to be or not, it's going to have to be a high priority. And I think there's a real reason for some real heavy, thoughtful consideration before you get into anything like that, because it's going to just take away most of what your resource base is. And so I'm always a little bit leery of that, and it'll eat your lunch, if you start building some property. That gets, most of us have had to do stuff like that. So Yeah, I think a church basement is an awfully good place to meet.
I know when I was part of helping form a group, we had briefly talked about maybe just buying a place and then would have a place to meet. And I know the comment was made at some point, if we did that, are we really going to own the building, or is the building going to own us? And
that's a good question.
And that can be a real challenge. For the continuing to be self-supporting, and just tagging on to the self-support. I know not only as a group, but I think I've been able to appreciate that tradition in my own life, because kind of like you were saying earlier, I was the same way. When I was out there drinking, I was a taker of things and a user of people, and if somebody crossed my path, they were going to be sorry they ever met me, and so it was a little different for me. Personally, to be self-supporting, but I appreciate that, and I've always appreciated that about Alcoholics Anonymous as well. Next question is, can non-members give any financial support to Alcoholics Anonymous? I think we've answered that one almost. But I guess the question is, what? Obviously a non-member can't contribute or donate money to Alcoholics Anonymous. The question is why?
Mm-hmm. Well, self-support. We took advantage of people for far too long, and if we continue that and expect somebody else to sort of carry our load, it's at our own expense. And so I think we have to just learn to take responsibility and not use people and not look for people to bail us out all the time. But
so I guess the next question would be an expanded version of that same question, really.
Well, now, but the other question we've got is, how much can members contribute?
$3,000, I think.
It's $3,000 a year, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe that's it. And there's $20,000 at death. If somebody wanted to give something, I think there's a limit on that. And it's more, but if somebody wanted to do it, it's good to be cautious about that too, because you can get in over your head real quick on it. And if you put in a whole bunch of money, you're going to think you got a little extra weight, and so it needs to have some. I had that whole thing about money. I had a funeral director, funeral director. Somebody told him to call me that there was something about a donation. A family, they had a son who, a young fellow, went through treatment, got out, stayed sober 2 or 3 months, and then started drinking and killed himself in a car wreck. The family wanted to make a donation in his memory, and it's just up the road, the next town up, and they very sincerely wanted to do that in memory of their son. And the fellow called me, and I said, no, I really don't think we can do it, because it's of our principle of self-support. And so he debated with me for a little while, and then I explained to him about how important it was for us to take responsibility and to stand up and look after our own welfare. And he finally gave up and said, he said, I'm not sure I agree with it 100%, but I'll tell you this, it's the finest principle I've ever heard of.
Or unheard of.
Yeah.
So another question is a sideline question. So a member can give $3,000 a year, and that's kind of the limit or the cap, which shakes out to $250 a month. Do you know anybody that gives at that level?
Not right off. I probably do, but I don't. I never have quizzed them on it.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't think there are many, if any, who contribute that much, because it's excessive, really.
It's a rent payment for me.
Sure, you bet.
It sounds excessive, and it is. I mean, but everything's relative. And if I compare that to what it cost me, when I was drinking, and everything else that went along with the drinking, $250 a month probably isn't excessive when you compare that to what I spent, drinking and then trying to, get out of the trouble that my alcoholism, led me to. So, just curious on that.
One quick thing for me, something that I appreciate a whole lot about, that whole tradition is, I think it instills a sense of almost like ownership for me in the program. This program works because there's, 2 million alcoholics just like me who they suit up and show up to a meeting and make sure that it gets done. We tried. A lot of meetings try their hardest to make sure a meeting goes smoothly. I mean, there's things here and there, but I mean, for the most part, there's very rarely do I go to a meeting ever where it's, somebody doesn't show up and the speaker's not there or whatever. But if they don't, somebody steps up to the plate in my experience. And I really appreciate that. And I know that, for me, that we don't depend on anybody else to make sure that gets done. It's all on, it's all on us. And I think it instills a sense of ownership in this program, and I want to make sure that it succeeds.
You bet. I won't go the whole story, but I saw a vivid example of why it's so important. I was at a conference, and it was the coldest conference I've ever been in. I mean, just the atmosphere was just, I don't mean the temperature, but it was a cold, just dead conference. And I thought, what on earth is wrong here? That's good speakers coming in. And so I was really caught up in why that was so dead. And what I found out was that there was one guy who had some frequent flyer miles built up, and he wanted a particular speaker to come, and he bought the ticket with his frequent flyer miles and brought in his speaker. Well, the conference, they had their own way of getting people together. He wasn't the speaker getter, but he was the guy who wanted his speaker. And so, and when I saw that, see, what that did was robbed the rest of the conference of participation. And this one hero stepped up. I'm the man. I'm the guy that makes this happen. And the whole bunch just absolutely stonewalled it. And I think that's the importance of having these funds handled in a way that we don't have one big hero doing the stuff, but to keep us humble and not let the big dog take over the show. That. So I think part of that goes into why we need to be careful with those funds.
So I think it goes back to what I think Bill Wilson was trying to tell us is the best place that money and spirituality can mix is in the basket.
You bet.
And that way it's anonymous. The next question is kind of it's a two-part, and I think I can answer the first one. Can a non-member at an open meeting put money in the basket? And the question's obviously yes. There's not any AA police checking to see who's a member and who's not putting money in the basket. But the next part of that question is, should a non-member put money in the basket at an open AA meeting?
He shouldn't, but he probably doesn't know it. Yeah. I don't think we need to police stuff like that. Like my wife puts in money for me sometimes because I'm usually broke. So she'll throw in money. I'd hate to have a rule that says if you're not a member, you can't put anything in there. That if there's no way to police that, that. And if somebody wants to throw a buck in a basket, there's not a way you're going to be able to bird dog that. That. But just the point is that we don't want to depend on other people to carry our weight. We got to take that responsibility.
Yeah, so we can't really police that, and the other part of it is, if they're coming in, they're drinking coffee, or they might take some pamphlets, or using our facilities, or whatever to hopefully benefit from it. It's not going to upset the apple cart if non-members contribute when the basket comes around. Okay. If